Welcome to this webinar called APMP UK's Got Talent. I'm Evie Robinson, a volunteer for APMP UK and your facilitator for today. It's great to see so many of you have dialed into our virtual awards showcase. I also have some facilitation support today. We're joined by 3 APMP UK board members, Karen, Mari and Peter, who will be introducing our award-winning speakers and asking them questions. All attendees are automatically muted, so you will be able to hear me and our speakers, but we can't hear you. If you have any queries throughout, please raise these by typing them into the chat function. Our UK chapter members won a host of awards at the APMP Week of Winners event this year. This is a fantastic result that demonstrates the calibre of our members and our chapter. Of particular note, 25% of this year's class of APMP 40 under 40 are UK chapter members. To celebrate this achievement, this webinar features a winners panel where 6 of our award winners will deliver a short presentation to highlight their achievements. We reached out to members over the last few weeks to ask you what else you'd like to know, so each of our speakers will give a short presentation followed by a couple of questions you asked in advance. Unfortunately, one of our original 7 speakers can no longer make it, but we will make up for this during future webinars in the coming months. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our events director, Karen, who is going to kick things off.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see so many of you on the webinar this morning. We're not going to take too long doing introductions because they will be covered off in the slides. I'm simply going to hand over to Jeremy Brim, who is the winner of the Vendor of the Year award. Over to you, Jeremy.
Thank you very much, Karen. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Brilliant, thank you. And first of all, thank you very much to you guys for putting this on. Actually, it's a lovely thing. I think we all really appreciate it. And like you say, or like Evie said, it's great recognition for the chapter, which I think if you look across the globe at the chapters, I think you guys are leading the way and really driving some positive change. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's a slightly awkward thing talking about yourself or your business, isn't it? But I'll plough on through with some of the highlights, I guess, of what our award submission said, which I must say I just blasted out on a 40-minute train journey, just thinking that we would get nominated would be good enough for the brand. So I was as surprised as anyone when we won this, but I think we've done some good stuff. So just for those that don't know about the bid toolkit and myself and where we've come from, so this is all the result of a £1 bet with my dad, actually. So my old man pulled me to one side in March 2018 and less than politely explained to me that I was killing myself making other people rich, and that I should probably reconsider my life choices, which was a bit of a setback because I thought he was proud of me. I was running the bid function at Mace with just one Battersea Power Station, 1.5 billion with one Tottenham Stadium and all sorts of things, having a whale of a time. But he was right, actually. So on a notepad at my mum and dad's house are a series of rules by which I had a challenge. So I accepted the £1 bet, and that is I need to hit a number by the time I'm 50, and I'm currently 41. I was 39 at the time of the intervention, let's say. But actually, more importantly, I needed to do something that was positively disruptive and that leveraged the biggest overlap of the things that I enjoyed doing and the things that I'm good at, as well as some softer KPIs around not working in London full time, spending more time with my wife. I have to go to the gym a couple of times a week, that kind of thing. So it's quite a good, fun start to a business. And so, just for those who don't know, I won't do a big sales pitch, as it were, but the Bid Toolkit's an online bid processing guide with integrated training and tools to download. And so 2018 was about setting up and mobilizing that B2C version. So there's a pay-per-play version, as it were, that anyone can access at www.thebidtoolkit.com. 2019 was then about driving deployment of enterprise versions where corporates buy a version of the Bid Toolkit site to sit within their intranet or passworded site, and was also probably the start of this journey really was becoming APMP ATO accredited, So we became an authorised training organisation during that year, which really started this journey, and particularly with the UK chapter, which has been great fun. And then 2020, as you would have seen from our recent webinars with the chapter, is about 55, 25, 20, our campaign for integrated capability development that builds momentum in win rate improvement company-wide, where our clients tend to find they get a 20% increase in their win rate by aligning some structured learning, some social learning, and some learning on the job with their enterprise toolkit site as their constant digital reference point. So, you know, the platform's here to make winning deals simpler and easier at higher margins and less heartache, as the spiel will tell you. But actually, the key
Excuse me, Jeremy, I'm just going to move you on a bit, please. I'm timing you quite strictly.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Thanks.
So the bit that's of interest for the award, I guess, is that the key enablers in doing that are actually by helping to professionalise the discipline, very aligned with APMP and the chapter. It's to make the discipline more attractive to young people, and it's to encourage and engage business leaders, contributors, SMEs, and the procurement profession to hear our side of the story and to you know, make our lives all easier. So I guess the attraction to the association of it is that I guess we amplify the reach as a channel and a conduit. It's the B2C version has 500 users a month around the world. The B2B versions have more than 5,000 at the time of submission. It's much more than that now. Users that are far beyond bidding professionals. It reaches into those contributors company-wide. And we have our partnerships with YPO, etc. So in terms of the community building bit of the submission, I guess, we put on 5 breakfast events in order to aid that community building piece that 300 people attended and more than 100 people watched resulting video content from. We punted out a load of thought leadership, as you'd expect, 21 blog posts, a series of videos, and also, of course, some winning the business articles for you guys. I personally am one half of the Red Review podcast that I do with Mike Reeder, where we've got about 500 listeners every couple of weeks all around the world, largely English speaking centric. And we, with the association, we put on a crossover panel at the UK conference where we had Rick, your chief exec, but also an executive board member from Crown Commercial Services, on a panel discussion about career acceleration on the development day, which I think is our second most listened to episode. So, and then we've done things like engaged with the Women in Bids and Proposals initiative and sponsored both their and spoke at both their conferences, and quite importantly engaged with the procurement market through our partners YPO. So I spoke at their conference where they had 300 procurement people who I delicately explained some of the ways that they could make the world better by engaging with us better, creating certainty for bidders, perhaps having some hackathons, positive engagement, all that kind of thing. I also met with Simon Sy, who's the Chief Executive of Crown Commercial Services, privately to talk about what we find and represent the discipline. And then I've spent some time with bid team leaders, as you'd expect, and I mentor 5 professionals ranging from bid team leaders all the way to coordinators. So that's probably the heart of the submission, really. The why it's important to me personally, it's a recognition of the hard work that not just me but a lot of people have put in, and thank you very much for the support. I've built a power team around me where I leverage my wife's marketing agency. Obviously Mike's a good mate of mine and tells me off or keeps me guided, but also I have 3 non-execs for the business, a guy who procured the Olympics, a board director from ISS, etc., who keep me on the straight and narrow. So thank you very much to those guys. And then I guess actually we can cover the rest in Q&A, Karen, if that's okay.
Yeah.
If I'm running.
Okay. Thanks, Jeremy.
No
Quick question then that was issued to us by one of the members. With the impact of COVID-19 and the changes in which people do business, what would you foresee as the up and coming areas of change in bidding?
Well, because I'm a non-exec for a number of businesses in other worlds and have engaged with some fairly senior people in big corporates on projects for them, which has brought interesting insight for the bidding side of things too. One of the big things is that certainly governance levels are accelerating and lowering. So boards will do things that they perhaps wouldn't have done before, as long as there's a demonstrable business benefit. So positive change in landing new bid processes, new initiatives, I think is the big space, because they're having to adapt obviously to a more virtual digital world. And I think this is a great opportunity for the bidding discipline to stage its post, to raise its profile and its value for the organisations that we work for, contribute to. So that's the biggest thing for me, is that this, out of this really negative, awful situation, the positive is for bidding people that we can actually build a platform and do some good for our organisation, show them the value we create.
Okay, thank you. I think we are quite tight for time, so I'm going to hand over to Mary to do the next introduction. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Hi, so next we've got Sarah Chapman, who won a 40 under 40 award. Sarah, if you want to take over.
Hi there, thank you very much. Really appreciate you reaching out to me today. I was quite surprised, obviously, to hear that I picked up one of the APMP 40 under 40 awards. I'm very proud to have been selected as one of the 25% from the UK chapter. In terms of how I was able to win that award, I completed a self application detailing my experience so far and some of my ambitions for future contributions to not only the bidding industry but also the industry that I work in. In terms of how I was able to get that, there were a couple of things that I obviously highlighted in my submission. Firstly, obviously supporting the increase of win rates. So over the duration of my management of the bidding function, I actually increased the annual win rates from around 71% to consistently over 90% each year. Alongside this, I was able to build an infrastructure to support winning business. So, for example, content libraries, templates, storyboarding, and actually implementing a better review process internally. And the final kind of aspect of it was more about coaching and training new bid professionals. So quite a lot of the people that I had in my team, I trained from scratch. I'm very passionate as a person about knowledge sharing and helping individuals to reach their full potential. So this is something that I think hopefully came across in my submission. In terms of why I think the award is important, for me personally, I think winning the award allowed me to recognise my own accomplishments. I am naturally quite a bit of a perfectionist and tend to be my own biggest critic, so sometimes it can be hard to look at my accomplishments today, and so it really helped me to do that. And I think also it's really important to inspire other people who maybe are in a similar position or in a similar mindset to do the same. I think for the profession, the awards are definitely important to provide members with a platform of role models, so people that they can look up to, people who maybe are in a similar kind of industry, a similar kind of situation to themselves. And I think it definitely offers members a sense of community and an understanding of maybe how they can progress, which is really important for both learning and development.
Thanks, Sarah. We've got a couple of questions for you. So the first one is, it's always daunting in any profession for a young person to put their ideas forward. What's helped you gain the confidence to put forward your ideas and make your mark?
So for me, I began working in bid management at 21 during my placement year at university. So from experience, it definitely can be quite daunting for a young person to put their ideas forward during the bid process. I found that for me, what worked well for me in terms of gaining my confidence was both having role models in my career journey, and also gaining as much knowledge as possible. I think firstly, those are the two things that I would advise any young person to consider when they're moving into the bid marketplace. For me, with role models throughout my career, I've been lucky to have some great professional and also personal role models, and definitely without their guidance, support and coaching, probably wouldn't be where I am today. But if you don't have one, I would suggest that you look into that. So for example, the APMP Rapport program is a really good idea that was obviously launched last year. I also think then obviously in terms of building knowledge, this is something that has majorly helped me build my confidence, and I think from my side, like, knowledge is always key. Even now I continually attend a lot of webinars, obviously the annual conferences, read up a lot of material just to build my awareness and knowledge of the bidding industry. I would recommend that if you are sort of just recently joining the bidding marketplace, I would recommend that you remain up to date with trends and occurrences in this industry. There's some great publications that you can read around topics on bid management. For example, see, Jeremy mentioned some of the newsletters that he does. You've also got things like the Shipley Proposal Guide, and alongside that, APMP obviously runs some really great events throughout the year, both online webinars and also in person.
And the second question is, how relevant do you consider social media to be in bidding?
So for me, I believe that social media is important when bidding for both strategy and also analysis. So on the strategic side, I use tools such as LinkedIn to search for contacts that are obviously involved in the procurement process. This usually helps me to see, first of all, who's actually going to be assessing the responses, and to determine from their experience and background maybe things that we may need to adjust in our submission. On an analysis side, I think when receiving a bid, it is really beneficial to use social media to identify recent news or updates regarding that client. Quite often there are more regular updates on these communication methods than say on a website or blog posts, and I've definitely seen a massive shift in organisations focused on this type of communication method since obviously joining bid management 9 years ago. I think the final thing that I do quite a lot, especially like maybe on a biannual basis, is using LinkedIn for competitive advantage. So I quite often do scoping exercises to establish the size and experience of the bidding teams of our competitors, to ensure that I'm continually thinking about ways to improve our responses in line with that.
Excellent, thanks, Sarah. Some very good information there.
No worries, thank you so much.
That's okay, thank you. Right, so next up is Mel Kerrison, another 40 Under 40 award winner. Mel.
Hiya, sorry about that. Was struggling with the technology a little bit. Good morning, everyone. So thank you for having me as part of this talk as well. So yeah, like many others here today, also one of the lucky ones to be selected for the APMP 40 Under 40. I think is a great award for our APMP to have, to recognise those that are starting out in their career, but also got a few years under their belt as well. And part of the reason for winning the 40 under 40, I've been involved in a few large strategic deals, one of which was over a year in the making, that perhaps involved a few pizza nights as well, but also contributed to an 86% win rate. I'm one of those that likes to keep an eye on my statistics, and I know win rate isn't everything. But also, I've tried to be, in the last 8 years that I've been working in bid management, contributing to the industry as well. So in the last couple of years, working with APMP to do a couple of sessions back in the days when we were allowed to meet face to face. So the gender pay gap discussion and also age related bias discussion at the conference last year. So why is it an important award? So going for awards, it helps you get a sense of achievement. It helps you kind of understand where you are in your career, and also helps you benchmark yourself a little bit as well. It's always nice to hear that you're doing well, and not just from the people who know you day to day, but also having that recognition from people outside of your organisation as well. And also, I think it's important to recognise that there are good bid people across all ages as well. Obviously, as you've seen from above, the dispelling myths and stereotypes is one of my pet projects that I like to have. And I think the APMP 40 under 40 helps do that as well. It doesn't matter how old you are. In fact, some of the brightest ideas that I've ever heard in a room have come from graduates in an organisation. So I think it's really important to recognise that being a good bid person isn't necessarily about having a certain number of years under your belt. And I think that's why APMP 40 under 40 is really important in demonstrating that across the globe.
Thanks, Mel. We've got a couple of questions for you too. So what, in your experience, is the best way to instill an awareness of the need to gather quantitative and qualitative evidence from subject matter experts?
Good question. So you picked the person who did a degree that involved research. So I get a little bit nerdy about data. I think in all aspects of what you do, having those kind of data evidence points is really useful. And when you're writing your proposal as well, it gives some credibility behind what you're saying. You're just saying, "Oh, I'm the best." Yeah, so what? How are you the best? Well, what have you got to back that up? If you can actually say, well, I'm the best because this independent organisation has ranked me as number one, I've achieved this, I've achieved that, it starts to add a bit more credibility to what you're saying. And I think sometimes with subject matter experts, certainly the more technical ones, you find that they focus on the detail of what a product or service can or cannot do. And I think it's relaying that so what element as well, and like really kind of working with them to go, okay, well, you've made a good point there, but how do we take that on to the next level? How do we really start to back up what we're saying? And that's the quantitative side. The qualitative side, obviously, quotes, anything that you can use to kind of give a bit more flesh to the bones as well of what you're trying to sell. I think it's a real balance between getting that technical speak in your documents and the more sales speak in your documents as well. And then use your pink teams and your red teams. Have some good reviewers that are looking for that kind of data, that are able to challenge, and then really coach your teams so that you start to get the most fruitful answers that have those evidence points that when you read it goes, yeah, I get this. If I were the customer, I'd be buying this.
Thanks, Mel. That's a very good answer to that question. The next question is, can you give us a top tip to gain C-suite sponsorship?
Okay, so I'm going to assume this is about kind of your personal development and sponsorship of you as a person rather than sponsorship of your bid. But if it's the latter, then correct me. So I think in terms of working with your leadership teams and anyone with a chief in their title, it's really a combination of opportunity and demonstrating value. So find those opportunities to gain airtime with chiefs, and don't be afraid to ask. And also, if you can't easily find an opportunity, perhaps find a mentor within your organisation that can help you, someone that understands what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, and can perhaps go, actually, I've got this side project over here that would be really useful to get you involved in. And then when you get that opportunity, then demonstrate your value. So don't be afraid to challenge ideas. As I've said, some of the best ideas have come from grads, and I think you shouldn't be afraid of whatever position you're in. If you think something is wrong or you don't quite understand something, you'll generally find that everyone else in the room probably has a similar thought to you. They're just too afraid to ask it. And I think if you can do that in a real effective way, that's when you start to demonstrate your value, and that's when you start to get a bit more airtime with those chiefs.
That's great. Thanks, Mel. That's really good. Thank you for your input. And now it's my pleasure to introduce another one of our fabulous 40 under 40s, and that's Ellie Blenkinsop. Ellie, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Peter. And thank you as well, the APMP community. I'm loving this session already. I've already learned so much. So thank you very much for organising it. I was really honoured to be included on this year's list, the 40 under 40, for what for all of us has already been a roller coaster of a year so far. I was included on the list in recognition of the ROI I brought for my business I work for as a result of the transformational bid process that I'd helped to spearhead. On a day-to-day basis, I'm responsible for a 20-strong team, and we support over 6,000 fee earners across the UK and Europe and the Middle East. And so for me, winning this award has been a really important and helpful part of that process, and also helps to cement the work and establish the work we've done to date. So when someone asks me how did we win this, well, I'd like to say it's never I, it's always we and the team, because I am really, really proud of my team, and they are high performers, they are passionate, they're committed, but it wasn't always this way. And me and the team have been very much on a journey of transformation, and I often cringe when I hear the word journey, but ultimately that is what we have been on. And it started out in 2016 when I returned to work from my first period of maternity leave, and ultimately the team was a shell. A number of senior people had left, the team that remained was fractured, and they were angry, and quite frankly they were exhausted. So the process that I undertook was a 3-part process, and I'm not going to go through all the detail now because, well, quite frankly, we don't have the time. But ultimately, and this goes back to what we were just talking about earlier, and I love a bit of data as well, but fast forward to today, and as a result of that process, the team, we've seen a value of the bids won increase by a staggering 260% over a 2-year period. And it doesn't stop there. And when we look at the early indicators of this year, what's even more exciting is that process that we have implemented and we have developed has actually mean that we've seen a 56% uplift during the lockdown period, which is actually nothing short of remarkable, and it's really fantastic. So the process that I implemented to get this award was a 3-stage process. It included a strategic review, setting a new bid strategy, or as my mentor likes to tell me, talking truth to power, which I quite enjoyed, and then finally a rollout process to do to that as well. But if anyone was to say what was the killer piece that helped with this, I would say it is team development and team training, and APMP has been a massive part of that. So one of my early wins for this was securing corporate membership for the entire bids team, and really focusing on ensuring that everybody, regardless of level, we really focus on gaining professional qualifications and accreditations with the APMP. And during lockdown, we've also extended that, and we are focusing a lot around, well, obviously it's delivered virtually, but virtual training on how do you influence and persuade virtually, because that's entirely different than face-to-face. How do you build resilience, and how do you deliver creativity and innovation? So that's ultimately it in a nutshell, and that's what I was recognised for, which was fantastic. So why is the award important to me? Well, I think it's twofold, and ultimately it's about recognition from my peers, because it's all very well being recognised within your business, but there's nothing better than recognition of a job well done from people who absolutely get where you're coming from and the challenges that you've had to overcome to get there. And it really has been exciting, and it really heartfelt to feel that I got this award because people understand what good really looks like. So that was really important to me. And then secondly, for me, I think these awards really play a massive role in the recognition of the wider spectrum that we work in and the pivotal roles that bids play across a whole field of different industries, different services, different sectors, and ultimately what bids do in playing a fundamental difference to our businesses' bottom lines, and ultimately helping them make more money and win more work. And for me, these awards and recognition is a vital part of that process. So as a final note, I just want to thank APMP and everyone in the UK chapter for helping us, providing us all with this platform to do that. So thank you.
That's great, Ellie. That's a really good insight. Thank you for that. So we've got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
And this follows on quite neatly from Mel's part as well. The question is, if there was a 30 under 30 category, do you think you would have won that award then? And have these last few years been significant in your career development?
Oh, I love that question. That's really good. Well, actually, my personal motto is never say never. But I actually think this would have been a very big stretch for me personally, because I actually didn't start working in bids until I was 29. So it would have been quite a good one to do that within a year. But and you know, if I look at this personally, this is a very personal reflection for me, and it doesn't, you know, will not apply to everybody. But I don't think I would have had the experience to be able to deliver something of this level of success in the 30 under 30, and that's not an age thing at all, or it's more of an experience thing, because in my 20s I personally was very focused on myself, my career, my goals, my aspirations. And what I've learned from leading a team and delivering change is that you have to have much broader perspective, and you have to really appreciate what that whole, when you look at your team, people are whole people, and by that I mean they're not just employees, they're not just team members, they all have their own pressures and constraints and challenges inside and outside of work, and it's working with them to enable them to bring their whole person to the office or to the home when we all work from home, to really for the betterment of that individual and the team. And I don't think I had that perspective in my 20s, and I think I've started to get that in my 30s. So yeah, but that's my view.
That's great, Ellie. No, I think you're right. Experience as opposed to age is the important thing, as you say.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then, so finally, your second question. As a lover of lists, can you tell us the first 3 things you would cross off your list for a new bid?
Yeah, well, I do like a list at work. I don't like a list at home, so that's a bit of an odd one, but that is true. This is, for me, is really easy, because actually this is how I work whenever I'm delivering a bid. It's these 3 things are so important to me. The first one is the bid no bid, or however you would term that in your organisation. Do we genuinely stand a chance of winning this? Because so much time and money is spent going after bids that people just don't stand a chance of winning. And it's not rocket science, but you know, getting people to recognise if there's a real opportunity there or not is fundamental to the keys to success. And if you've got a good chance of winning, what's your win rate and your fee rate source? So that for me is absolutely number 1. The second thing for me is around client relationship and client scoping. I appreciate that sometimes in a procurement-led world it's a little bit more difficult, but for me a brief only tells you so much, and what are the real challenges and the real unspoken words that are going on behind that brief that we need to be addressing as consultants, that we really need to help with our clients, to help understand them to win an opportunity. And then finally, around team. So does our team makeup genuinely reflect the client's needs, or essentially is this a bit of more of an ego party from our side, and making sure that the right team goes to the right opportunity? And that's it.
Thanks very much, Ellie. That was really interesting. It's great to get a perspective from somebody different. I like your list. It's a good one. So we're now going to Ruth Stringer, who works for Evershed Sutherland, and she won the Bid and Proposal Team of the Year. So over to we can't hear Ruth. Ruth, no, we've had some problems with Ruth all the way through this webinar. We've been trying to get Ruth connected, disconnected, connected again, but we obviously can't hear what Ruth's saying. So I think we're going to just have to jump on to the
Can you hear
last.
me? Sorry.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
You did. Oh, hurrah! That
we
worked.
can
Brilliant.
hear you. Okay, on you
Thank
go
you.
then, Ruth. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I think I've aged 10 years in the last half an hour. Right. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for inviting me. I'm Ruth Stringer and I head the Evershed Sutherland pitch team, who won Bid and Proposal Team of the Year. How did we win it? Sorry, I'm going to make Ellie cringe here, but it was a 3-year-long journey for us that began with an end in mind, to raise the profile of our team internally within our business and externally in our profession. I think throughout my 11 years working in bids, despite every pitch manager I ever meet being incredibly competitive, I found we actually don't like to shout about what we do. Because to win a bid, we often just see that as our jobs. And of course, when we lose a bid, the internal turmoil is horrendous. So I had this incredibly talented team, but we were very much hiding our lights under a bushel. And that's where APMP came in, and leaders in our industry, such as John Williams, who follows after me. So we joined APMP as corporate members in 2017, and we attended regional seminars and conferences to expand our understanding of how bids worked in other industries. We are co-founders of Pitch to Proposal, which is a non-competitor networking forum in the north of England, which again shares best practice and thought leadership. We undertook APMP qualifications with the help of John Williams. I think it's 11 foundation, 6 practitioner, and also 4 mini marketing MBAs with Mark Ritson at Marketing Week. I restructured the team, promoting talent and giving everyone a career path from pitch executive to senior pitch manager. And we also have 2 apprentices under the APMP sponsored scheme. So all of this positive support and growth then in turn meant that we kept the best talent, and ultimately that helps you win bids. So our overall win rate is between 60 and 65%, but we have an impressive win rate of over 80% as a team when we're working on £1 million plus opportunities. And when you get win rates like that, then your CEOs and execs start listening to what you have to say. So why is this award important to me and the profession? Well, over the last 3 years, we've won 6 awards with APMP, from 40 under 40 to Bid Excellence, Leadership and Innovation. But this one was definitely the sweetest, because this is the award that if somebody had asked me 3 years ago what we would like to win most, I would have said this one, because this has always been about our team and raising the profile of our team, and to be recognised for the great work that we all do. So to be seen as the best bid and professional team in the world, well, it doesn't get better than that, does it? And in terms of the profession, well, isn't it amazing that we as a British team from our homes in Leeds and Newcastle should be winning this award against so many other amazing international teams out there? It makes you very proud. And as you can see from the slide, that's the team there. Happy to take questions.
Yes, sorry, that was me not
That's all right.
muting in time. So yes, we do have a couple of questions, and I think, to be honest, you might have answered some a bit, but anyway, Team of the Year is a great award to win. It really is. I can understand why you're so excited about it. How many people are in your team, and how do you keep them motivated all the time?
Yeah, so we're a team of 14, as I said, largely based in the north of England. But we actually support all English speaking opportunities across our international network. We currently have a vacancy for a senior pitch exec, if anyone's interested. In terms of obviously motivation, we have a weekly pitch team call where we do what we call a show and tell, which means that we talk each other through our bids and we share lessons learned, both good and bad, and that's a kind of safe space. We also, from a financial perspective, have a bonus scheme, which we obviously, people have the opportunity, depending on their performance, to receive remuneration that way in terms of financial reward as well.
That's really good. Excellent. So going forward, what areas would you focus on to improve in order to maintain being a force within bidding?
So we actually seconded one of our team a year ago to the Middle East, and unfortunately he didn't come back. He's loved it so much. He's stayed out in Dubai. But that had a huge impact in terms of our profile as a team, and also in changing how obviously the Middle East viewed bids. And so I do think, despite obviously the impact of COVID, I do think that secondments will be key going forwards in our key jurisdictions as a business. So for us, that's going to be the US and Germany. And I think also from an individual's personal perspective, to have those career opportunities to work for 6 months in another country is just phenomenal. So I think, yes, for me, I think that's where I see our world going and keeping us fresh and up to date.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ruth. And I think I'm handing over to Peter now. Thank you.
Once again, thanks, Ruth. That was great. Now, last but not least, certainly but not least, it's my pleasure to introduce the winner of the most prestigious William C. McRae Founders Award, John Williams. John.
Can you hear me? I'm left feeling a bit like the old guy here. With all these 40 under 40s, a milestone that I passed many, many years ago. Thank you for inviting me to this. All of us who are members of APMP owe a huge amount to the small group of people, of pioneers who founded this association in the late 1980s. And perhaps before I go on to the award, at this point, I might make mention of Howard Nutt, one of those founders who passed away very recently, and with great sadness. Anyway, back in the day, one of the real driving forces in getting APMP up and running was a guy called William McRae, who was a hugely successful bid manager for McDonnell Douglas, the US aerospace company. And it was widely believed that APMP got off and running and got off the ground quicker than it would have done because of all of William's hard work and drive and leadership and motivation. And very sadly, he passed away very early, very young, unexpectedly. And the association decided to name its highest honor in his memory. And it's for, and I quote, members who have demonstrated exceptional abilities and qualities to move the industry forward. Now, I love surprises, and I can honestly say that winning this award came as a huge surprise. It was at the end of the presentation of the APMP Fellows Awards, and it's not even something that gets announced in advance. It's only been awarded 9 times in the association's 31 years, up until for some reason they chose me. I like to think it's for recognition of what I've done over the past almost 20 years for APMP. I was the first chief exec, as many of you will know, of APMP UK. I've spoken at numerous conferences and done keynote speeches around the world on 4 continents, at the point where we could travel and do keynote speeches on 4 different continents, run certification for lots of you, I guess, and generally done an awful lot to try and promote and champion the cause of APMP. I also like to think it's a reflection of all the hard work of my colleagues in strategic proposals, the company I run in the UK and kind of the day job. We've always been very active in sponsoring APMP's events and activities. But one of the parts of the criteria for this award is industry thought leadership. And I'm very lucky to work with a group of people who do a huge amount of research and developing good practice. And we publish lots of white papers and webinars and so on that. So my thanks really, I think, in winning this award reflects on the team that I have the pleasure and honour of leading. So a lovely surprise, a huge honour, and frankly, it's left me feeling very humbled, and I'm incredibly grateful to the association for recognising me in this way.
That's great, thanks, John. But don't fear, you know, I think I've got a few years on you, so you're younger than me, so let's not worry about that. Right, and that sort of leads on nicely to your first question, which is, if you could go back in time, as we all wish we could, what advice would you give yourself starting out in your bidding career?
Don't do it. No, sorry. Seriously, when I came into the proposal world, having started my career in procurement, and just got very frustrated with the proposals I was seeing from some of the suppliers, I think I'd perhaps paraphrase Baron de Coubertin, who was the guy who founded the modern Olympics, and say it's not the taking part that matters, it's the winning. You know, if you're not working with an organization that's passionate about winning and passionate about the value of proposals within a good sales cycle in creating competitive advantage, then go find another organization to work for. You know, what we do as bid and proposal people is so essential for organizations' success that it really does need sponsorship from the C-suite. So find organizations that are passionate about it, and not be afraid to go and bang on doors and talk about what we do being so important in protecting, in creating jobs in the organization, in generating revenue for the company. And you know, when it's done wrong, when it's frustrating, when it's too few people working on too many bids, that's not good for people's well-being either. So I think we kind of owe it to one another, and as we all work through our careers in the profession, to kind of work in places that get it.
Yep, no, I think you're right there, and to carry on that analogy, there's no silver medals in bidding, so it's only the gold medals we're after. So for your second question, from your experience, do you think bidding skills are transferable across any industry, or have you found any industries which have a bidding world unto themselves?
So I think in answering that, I need to distinguish between bid management and proposal management. That's one of the age-old debates in our profession, I guess. You know, I'm a proposal person. My job as a proposal guy is to help people tell their stories persuasively in the proposals they submit, the pitches they then give to bring that to life, and to plan to do that successfully. And yes, I think the skills of really good proposal people are absolutely transferable. And I find that myself. I can be working from day to day in completely different sectors, whether it's construction, engineering, law, finance, IT. The skills really are transferable. In fact, I always say to my clients, the moment I try and second guess the solution is the moment you should usher me politely to the door. So I think proposal skills are transferable. I think bid management's slightly different. You think of bid management as planning and running the end-to-end campaign and pulling together the right team internally to develop the right proposition. I think that needs more sector experience, more savvy about the types of propositions your organization can put forward. It needs more competitive awareness. So whilst proposal management, I think, is transferable, I think it takes a little bit more time as a bid manager to be brilliantly successful if you swap sectors.
That's great. Thank you, John. Really good answers there. So now I'm going to hand over to Karen.
Thank you. And I think, Evie, we need to move on the slides. That's right. So first of all, thanks to everybody that took part in this. It was really, really good, really interesting. And now we are going to launch the 2020 UK Awards. Nominations are going to open on the 18th of August at 12 noon, and I'd like to encourage all you ex-winners to get some of your teams to put in some oh, what do you call them? I've lost my word. To nominate themselves, or you nominate them for some of the awards. We will be announcing things on LinkedIn, Twitter, all the usual social media channels. and you'll see lots of emails, etc., coming out from Mary probably about this. I think it's been really interesting to see how many people on this have talked about the teams that they work in. And it's not really just a one-person award, even though it might be one person that picks up the award. But I think we all work in teams, and we can probably all think of somebody who should be put forward for an award. So that's what's happening next from us as far as awards go. Thanks again to everybody that's taken part, and I'm going to hand it back to Evie.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, so wrapping up now, thank you to everyone who's attended and listening today, and to our brilliant speakers for sharing their insight. If any attendees have had any more follow-up questions, which I'm sure you will, for our speakers, you'll receive a follow-up email later today with my email address, so please feel free to send your questions there. That email will also contain a post-webinar survey to help us improve our future webinar programme, so we'd be really grateful for your feedback. The recording of this webinar will be accessible on the new APMP UK member community in a few days. You can also access the recordings of our past webinars on the member community if you go to events, then filter by date and then past events, or you can simply enter the name of the webinar in the search bar at the top. So just a quick announcement before we close. It's a really busy week for upcoming virtual events. So our APMP colleagues in the US are holding an online virtual conference this week called Winning Business Virtual Experience. It will feature an unprecedented 32 hours straight of content and live interaction with industry professionals, and is free to APMP members. Among many speakers from our community that I'm sure you'll recognise, I just wanted to flag that the APMP UK board have a presentation slot on Thursday at 5 to share details of our 3 strategic projects, which are BidX, our career mentoring programme, and the member community. You'll be able to find more details about that online conference in today's follow-up email. Thank you again for attending, and to our excellent speakers, and we look forward to having you again at future webinars. Thank you.
Thanks, Evie.